Hi everyone. Welcome to the last panel of INOCon. Thanks for being with us for the past 4 days. It's been really amazing. And shout out to the whole INOCon team for putting all the hard work. So before we all go out and celebrate this beautiful Friday night, please stay with us for 40 more minutes. And we're going to be having a conversation about career sustainability for artists. And my name is Magda, and I'm joined by the two amazing people, which is Patrick Ross, who's the Senior Vice President of Digital Strategy at Music Ally, and Henriette Heimdal, who's responsible for market development for the UK and Europe at City Baby. Hi guys, how are you? Good. All right, before we start, could you please just say a little bit about yourself? Henry, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, first off. My name is Hen, and I work for CD Baby, as you mentioned. It's one of the biggest DIY distributors in the world. So we have offices all across the world, Latin America, US, Europe, India, etc. And within the family of companies, we also have Downtown Music Services, Song Trust, and Fuga, which is also a label distributor. So yeah, hi.
Thanks.
Howdy.
Patrick?
I'm Patrick from Music Ally. Hopefully most of you are aware of Music Ally. If not, do sign up to read us. These days I used to work for AWOL for quite some time, but these days I do marketing campaigns, a bit of writing, a lot of speaking, and a lot of training, spreading the good news of digital and music.
Nice. Thanks again, guys, for being here. And let's kick it off real quick about what is your definition of a sustainable music career as an artist? Because I feel like everyone might have a little bit of a different one. So I'm curious, like, what is it in your words? Patrick, do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, I think that really, it depends on like the personal definition. One of my favorite examples was a guy called, is a guy called Rory Joseph, who's an artist I used to work with. And most people, he was on a major at one point. Most people probably haven't heard of him, but he paid for his house, his kids, his life by touring the UK, even sold some CDs back in the day. And I would say that was sort of sustainable. He sustained the sort of lifestyle that he wanted. And for him, it was never about, having some sort of superstar mega success. So I think sustainability is whatever it is that allows you to, execute your dreams, whatever that is within music, and to, live the kind of life that you want off the back of it. And hopefully it pays for itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. The definition of success is a very subjective thing, right? And it differs greatly between genres and the sort of space that you're in. But if you can pay for a house or a roof over your head and butter on your toast, I think you're in a pretty good place.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So let's imagine you're an artist, you kind of have your music figured out, and you maybe take it to a label, maybe take it to the manager or to any other music industry professional. You're like, this is my music, I want to take it to the next level. And then I guess one of the first questions that you're going to hear is, okay, so what's your strategy? Like, how are you going to make money? How are you going to get fans? Like, what you're going to do? And the artist is like, oh, I should have a strategy. So I guess my question is how to come up with such a strategy, like a long-term strategy as an artist, and to follow it up, kind of how to make it work for you. Because as you said, everyone's different, depends on the genre, depends on like what you want. So I'm kind of curious, like, what would you say to the artist? Like, how do I come up with a strategy for my career? Henry?
I think artists today are in a very privileged and a very cursed position at the same time, because there's access to more information than ever before. And a lot of the kind of traditional gatekeepers are not necessarily there, right? But I think the backside of that is that there's this incredible expectation on artists to learn and understand about so many areas of the industry. I would always sit down with an artist and just kind of talk about what they want to accomplish. For some artists, they want to put a bit of music out there but continue their day job of being a hairdresser. Or for some people, they want to be superstars. And how you come up with a strategy as a result of that, again, varies greatly, right? But a lot of the same bits are always required. How are you going to get access to money to do marketing? Yep. How are you going to build a team around you? How are you going to release, and how often are you going to release? And once you've made a couple of those decisions and started looking into that, I think it becomes much clearer for an artist to be able to come up with a strategy. But also, it's a moving thing. It's a living, breathing thing, right? Your artist career. It's not like you can sit down on January the 1st and plan out your next 3 years, and then if things don't go to plan, then just drop the whole thing. So I think you need to be agile and pivot as things develop, and be reactive.
I mean, to further to that, what you said about wanting to also be a hairdresser, I spoke to a Canadian artist last week who was telling me that the number one curling, the Canadian sport, she also works a day job as like a lawyer, and he said he thinks that the future of music, he was very sort of self-aware, is that he's going to keep his day job, and he wants his music career to be sustainable and not just be an expensive hobby. When you talk about planning for the future, I often it's like climbing a mountain. So or walking up a hill, let's say, and you think you're going to some sort of peak, but anyone that's been up a hill or been up a mountain, you realize once you get up, things get a little bit more clear, and actually the way that you're trying to go ends up being a cliff face, and you need to be able to pivot. Now you still think that you want to go there. You might actually get up and find out that there's another peak behind it that you couldn't see from the bottom. But I often tell developing artists especially to make a 1-year plan, and not to say that in 1 year you're actually going to be wanting to go to that same place, but at least you've got a direction, and hopefully the next few weeks, the next few months are going to be quite certain, and as it keeps going down, it gets a little bit more guesswork. And and I'll probably reference him quite a lot, the artist that I manage, Ruben Donson, he very clearly knew what he wanted to do when we started working together, and which I think was great. He knew what kind of labels he wanted to be signed to. He knew what markets he wanted to be big in. Now, those things are going to change as we move along the way, but actually being self-aware and having an idea of where you want to go, not least of all, helps everyone else that are partners like Hen and myself in this industry actually get on board with you and understand what journey you're trying to take. And it also gives you some sort of direction to be heading in, even if you might end up climbing a different peak to the mountain.
And also, to build on that again, I think what Patrick is saying there about industry partners, from our perspective, if you come to us and you have a plan, it doesn't need to be set in stone, but if you have a vague plan of what you want to accomplish, you make it a lot easier for us to build a narrative around you, because at the end of the day, that's what most of the people working in the music industry are doing day in and day out. We're building and creating narratives around artists to get buy-in, not only from just fans, but also, when we pitch for playlist placements, it's important that there's a journey there. There's a clear direction that you're heading in, and that there's a bit more of a plan, because they like to see that, they other industry partners will think that it seems like a much more sort of professional setup, if you will, if you have a bit of a plan.
So what, in your opinion, should the plan contain? Like a basic plan? I assume it would be like a target audience, kind of like release calendar. What else? Marketing calendar, probably.
Yeah, and I think long-term goals of I want to tour the United States and be one of the biggest selling pop artists. That's a pretty good sort of mountaintop to aim for. And then in the interim, how do you want to get there? What does your release strategy look like? Understanding how you're going to be able to actually achieve that. Like, what kind of label do I want to work with? If I want to work with a label, where am I going to get my funding? And to start thinking about those things in the long term, as well as, you know, what kind of music videos am I going to want? What's it going to actually cost to actually allow me to do this, and to be realistic about that, so that as you're going along, you can check each thing that comes your way, because a lot of things will come your way, some of it not so good, some quite good, and then you can kind of test that against the plan that you have and where you're trying to go.
And I also think, you know, being a bit self-critical and sitting down and having a bit of a think, what am I good at? Which are the areas of the music industry that doesn't scare me, right? Some artists are really good at running social media and the kind of marketing side of things, or some are very good with the back end, the admin sort of thing. Sit down and have a think about what you're good at and what you don't like doing, and then trying to identify who can help you with the bit that you don't like doing. Who are the best partners for that, and making sure that you do your research around all the different partners that you're going to require, whether that's a manager or a distributor or a label, whatever. But yeah, identifying those early on can really save you a lot of hassle, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a very good piece of advice. So to sum up a little bit what you said is basically like kind of have a goal and like work your way back from that. And yeah, definitely, you know, pros and cons and what you're good at. I think that's a very important thing. My next question is the one that you, Henry, you were really excited about this one. And it's, I'm curious about any theories, myths, and misconceptions about the artist careers that you guys heard throughout your experience, and anything that you want to debunk right here, right now, about being an artist.
I think going back to what I was saying before about it, as an industry, we create narratives, right? We're storytellers. That's the core of what we do. And I think one of the biggest stories that we've created for ourselves are all these stories about different artists that all of a sudden they just pop out of bed and then they become global superstars. You know, like a Billie Eilish type character that just all of a sudden appears out of nowhere. I think it's really important that people understand that there's a long road between Billie Eilish first starting dabbling in music and releasing, you know, a Grammy award-winning album, right? It takes a long time, and don't be discouraged if things don't happen for you overnight. If the first track that you release don't end up on 15 New Music Fridays, it's okay. That is actually how it goes for most artists, you know. It takes a bit of time for a fan to buy into you, and you know, to kind of be committed to that relationship. Yeah, that's my one, I think.
And you've got some pretty good examples there of Lizzo and 21 Pilots that both started on CD Baby, both have catalogs there. There's the Ed Sheeran quote where when his first album came out, everyone was like, "Oh my God, you must be making so much money." And he was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm signed to a major record label now. I see nothing. I got an advance." And I think he was through Ditto. But like his previous EPs that he owns and are still distributed by a distributor, he's like, that's where, you know, I make my money. And there is again this idea that people come out of nowhere, and you know, maybe you heard of them when they suddenly were signed to a major label, but there was a journey, and you know, that journey, you can't really skip steps. And I think that it's really important not to skip those steps. You know, need to put out that first release, maybe with a distributor that you find out not CD Baby isn't very good, and you go down a path and go, hold on, that didn't end up on Pandora, and okay, you learn from that. You know, have uncleared samples in some of your music and understand I'll never do that again. The journey is just as much of a part of it, and as much as, you know, this misconception that people came out of nowhere, that's where you really learn. And skipping steps is not going to help you in the long term. And to actually, you know, everyone's afraid of releasing that first track and having less than 1,000 plays, but everyone had to do it at some point. You can always take it down. But, you know, make sure that you enjoy each piece of the journey and don't be trying to rush ahead somewhere else, because you'll get there if you stick with it. I think there's also, you know, a misconception of how easy it might be, because it's not. That, you know, again, all these artists that you've actually heard of, how many others didn't make it to the point that you actually heard of them? and how long it actually takes to sustain yourself off of a musical career. If you're getting into music for money, okay, maybe in the long run, but there's probably some other industries that you could pivot to and be, more quickly to the getting rich quick scheme. It's going to take a while. I mean, especially in the streaming economy that we live in now, for a collection of releases, 3 songs to actually pay for itself. You've got to build, but that's all right. You learn, your audience learns, and the people that you pick up along the way will grow with you.
And I think, it's like you'll hear this number being thrown around by a lot of people in the industry. 60,000 tracks are uploaded to Spotify every single day. 60,000. That is a lot of music, right? It requires quite a bit of work to cut through all of that noise and to make it to the front of the queue, but don't be afraid of a bit of failure. I think it's a massive cliche, but you definitely learn a lot from failing. You learn a lot more than you do from successes, right?
For sure. And people remember obviously those successes, but it's those failures that make you pick yourself up, get back in the ring and go, okay, right, learn from that, got knocked down, not going to do that again, and only wiser.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Okay, we're halfway through, so I kind of want to move a little bit into kind of like fan engagement and basically building relationships with fans. So there's this pretty well-known theory. I know you guys know about it. For anyone that doesn't know, the 1,000 fans theory, true fans theory. And it basically says that if you, as an artist, any kind, not only musical artist, can get 1,000 true fans, and the definition of true fan is basically a person who will buy everything you release. So they will stream, they will buy merch, they will go to a show, they will go to a meet and greet, do everything. So if you get 1,000 people like this, you can, in theory, make a sustainable career. What do we think about that? Do you guys agree with that? Do you not?
I think as a theory, I definitely see a lot of points in it, right? That the idea is if you have 1,000 people that would be willing to spend $100 each per year on you, whatever it is that you're trying to sell to them, then in theory you have $100,000 before all the deductions, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of sense in that it's so much better to have a handful of fans that are so much more dedicated and that are reliable and willing to spend money on you as an artist. But you also have to think about you need to make stuff available for them, right? Because in a streaming era where most people are not buying physical, let's be real. So some people are buying vinyl, and as I don't know, some people are buying vinyl.
It's a thing, yes, for some people.
But in a COVID world where live gigs are not happening, people are not necessarily going out to spend money on physical products, then you need to create an offering for them that actually allows for them to spend money on you, right? So I think you need to be quite creative in order to service those 1,000 fans.
And with that, when we talk about 1,000 fans, that's not 1,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah.
It's not 1,000 monthly listeners. It's I think a pretty healthy thing could possibly be to look at your mailing list. I do with the artists that I manage, and I will say our mailing list is much smaller than the other 2 numbers. But those are people that have actually taken the time to give their email address. 2 of them are my mom, but anyway, so you might have to take it down a little bit. But yeah, I think that actually understanding that journey, because we get so caught up in a world of metrics that it's a really weird thing that we live in now. I guess it's the way it is. I use Apple Music, so I don't have numbers. But it's a very strange thing that we have all these numbers, and a lot of people get into this idea of gaming the numbers and to build them really big. And I just think that's really unhealthy, trying to showcase that you're something else. I mean, we've got Chartmetric, or we're a major label tool. We can dig in and see what's real. And to actually be, mindful and understanding that yeah, you're building, you're maybe have a whole bunch of monthly listeners. A bunch of them probably listen to you through a certain playlist, and when you're removed, are they still there? And which ones can you actually get to come? Would they come to a live experience? Would they actually buy a deluxe box set if you're able to actually do that? And it's understanding that that's going to be, they're the ones that are going to be in that journey with you, as I said before. And if you start out with 50, great, you got 50, and you just keep building on that. So I think it's a very good concept. Might need more of them these days, but if you've got that many people that are loyal, then there's obviously going to be a whole bunch of other listeners or followers, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, having that core and respecting that core, the super fans, actually realizing that they've been there with you throughout the whole journey, that they've followed you along, and making sure that you respect that. I think some of the greatest bands in the world, I'm a Grateful Dead fan, they always respected their fans. Pearl Jam does a good job of that as well, where basically there's like their fan club is the first in, basically means you get the best seats, things like that. So they still reward their fans from back in the day. And I think that journey and having people grow and develop with you is really, really powerful.
And taking the time to understand your fans as well, right? I think the genres of music where they tend to do this the best, understand their fans and provide them with the items that they want, tend to be kind of boy bandy world. Like your BTS is a super classic example, right? But the other side of that, I think, is metal labels. People that work in the metal space are incredibly creative with the sort of products that they package up and offer to the fans. So like, if anybody's really interested in creative solutions around this, 100% go and look at metal merch stores and stuff.
That's great. That's a perfect example. Actually, I have a question in the chat that was exactly my next question. And there's a question from Akshay. Is there a specific formula/process to convert your followers into your audience, and then your audience into your fans, and then fans into kind of like a community? And that was exactly my question. Like, how exactly do you build such a close relationship with a fan? Obviously, you mentioned understanding them, understanding their needs. Anything else?
I brought up mailing lists before.
Yes.
I know it seems sort of old school, and I've had to drag my artist kicking and screaming. He doesn't like email, but he's starting to get it. I think that's a really, really good place because there's a level of consent around signing up to an email list. And you can write back to an email. So we very much look at it as, we're not going to bombard you. We're not going to use this to market to you. We'd like to hear back from you. By being on here, you're going to be the first to hear about things. We'll make sure that we tell the mailing list first. We'll give you like exclusive access to things. You can hear new tracks before they come out. And yeah, actually, like, curating and building that journey, because there is the danger, dating myself, of building a fan base elsewhere. Back in the day, that was MySpace, and we all saw how that turned out. Then it was Facebook. A lot of people put a lot of time in building fans and followers there. Now Instagram, YouTube's still around, but actually having something, and that's why mailing list is really powerful. That's something that you own, that when platforms change, that you actually are able to communicate with these people, and then give them the ability to interact with each other and show them that they're listened to.
Definitely. And I think 100% agree with what Patrick is saying, that having access to that, to your fan information is super, super crucial. But Patrick and I was on a call earlier today, and we were talking about, like, one of the things I hate the most is when I go into artist social media platforms, whatever it is that you're existing as an artist, and it's so salesy. Everything is like pushing, and it's not giving me any sort of sense of who you are as a person. That from your own fan experiences, like you like to feel like you're starting to understand them, right? Because that gives you another deeper insight into lyrics, or just like it feels like you have a closer relationship with them. So treating your fans to the courtesy of responding to comments, to communicate back with them, to give them content they actually want to see, and not just like 10,000 come and buy my tickets now Which obviously you should be notifying your fans about when stuff is happening. But if that's the only thing that you're doing, it doesn't feel very authentic in like a fan artist relationship, you know. So I would definitely think of that. Think of the sort of stuff that you're putting out into the world, and whether if you were sat on the other side as a fan, whether that tickled that urge, you know, to get to know the artist better.
And as I thought you were possibly going to steal from me, but I'll say it. So social media is just that. It's social. It's not broadcast media. And too many people treat it like it's a broadcast, but it's a two-way street. There are DMs. There's the ability to comment back. Commenting on your YouTube comments and actually showing people, I mean, YouTube loves that from an algorithmic standpoint anyway, but actually showing people that you're not talking into a vacuum, responding to DMs where appropriate. Obviously that can get harder as you get bigger. But actually realizing that when people connect with you, again, to this idea of consent, when they click follow, they didn't click. There's a reason it's not called the market to me button. It's follow, it's subscribe. And you should give them, respect that consent by making sure that like you don't abuse it. You're not using it to just bombard them. And you're actually being like, thank you for coming in here. And if they want to go a step further, sign up to that mailing list or give you something more, that you're even more thankful and appreciate the fact that you can actually communicate with them. Because especially right now, for the artist I manage, not having live, this was going to be our year of live. But not having that, it was really hard because we're having to like understand, as our buddy of mine said, he's going to understand his songs better when he gets up in front of an audience, because you may think it sounds good in your bedroom dojo, but when you actually get in front of an audience, you'll see how people respond. But you can do that like digitally as well. And like we're starting to build an idea of what kind of fan for this artist, for Ruben Donson, they would actually like, and like what kind of music. So like his next EP that was coming out, we were debating one of the tracks on it and thought, it's basically supposed to be a very happy EP. Came in at the end with a bit of a sad song, but actually in reality, I think it's that his fans would actually appreciate. And we had to like approach it in that way of we're making this for that core. We want them to be really pleased and happy about this and be excited and tell their friends and bring in more like-minded people.
Yep. No, I think it's a great point what you said about, social media being social. And I feel like the thing that is super overlooked is just like asking fans of everything. And it's not about asking them to pay money. It's like, hey guys, do you want to hop on a live stream? Do you want this kind of merch drop? Do you want this? I feel like you just literally should ask and talk to them. I feel like, yeah, I mean, what you said about the broadcast media versus social media, very good point.
I completely agree. And I think you should, as an artist, you should get into the mindset that whatever you're asking your fans to do, or your potential fans, what's the return for them, right? If you're asking them for an email address, if you're asking them to pre-save, if you're asking them to do all these things, what are you giving back to them? Yes, obviously with a pre-save, for instance, it's you giving them access to the track, right? But I talk to a lot of artists in very much the sort of developing stages where a pre-save is a very common conversation. And one of the things I always say to them is like, use that tool for all it's worth. Yes, the person clicked on it, came in, accepted, you got them to that stage. But after that, you can, these tools allow for you to redirect to a different website, an unlisted YouTube video where you can say thank you, or you can perform the track acoustically, or just something like that, or give them a free download, whatever it is. Just like be creative with it,
Yeah, absolutely.
As the inventor of the pre-save, just had to drop that in there. We're looking at that of, especially around single products, it's quite a lot to keep asking people to pre-save, which was not actually how we built it originally, but no one's actually rebuilt the correct mechanism. So we're like, what can we do that actually gives, like, for someone doing something, like you said there, of giving like a YouTube video. But we decided, like, why don't we don't have a catchy name for it, but if you sign up, how about you can have the next track? We'll send you a private SoundCloud of the next track. And there was a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, well, what if it leaks? And I was like, well, what if it does? We're going to release it. It's coming. The worst that happens is people fall in love with this track and start sharing it. It will be on Spotify. It will be on Apple Music at some point. But let's give them some value for actually like taking the time to give us their email address, a data point, and actually like trusting us enough to handle that and show them that we care.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to come back like real quick about what you, Patrick, said about kind of, having this like one sad track on a happy album, and if people are actually going to understand that. I've got a question here about rebranding and reinventing yourself as an artist, and maybe kind of, putting out a different kind of music that your fans are used to do. How to do it right so they don't kind of shift away from you? Any tips?
I've got one so I work with a lot of students and people that are putting their first track out. And we'll often get this sort of, I mean, the artist I manage said the same thing. I could do anything. I'm like, cool, I get that. And they're like, well, I'm going to do my first track's going to be like a really dope grime track. And then I'm going to do one that's like a bit like slow, chilled out for the first 3 singles. And then I'm going to do one that's a bit rocky. I'm like, I get to you that you can do all of these things, but you're going to confuse the hell out of people who like you for one song. Now, as much as you can develop into and change into something else, you do have to move at a pace that's logical enough for people to follow you. And, a lot of artists have done that where they've been able to change it up. I mean, David Bowie is a good example, but also He was David Bowie. By the time he was actually like, doing all these transitions, people are like, all right, I'm into that. And just be mindful of the audience that, if you do actually want to completely change it up, okay, you can get there, but, plan that. And plan your first releases so that they probably make some level of sense, that people are able to follow along the journey. Otherwise, if you take a total left turn, people might be go, wait, what's actually happening here? And just be mindful that as much as you as an artist, most of the time, can probably see all these different places you will go, that's fantastic. But like, that'll come. Make sure your audience is the time to actually catch on to what you're doing first, get involved, and then follow you on that journey.
Completely agree. I don't think I've got anything to add to that. I think it's just important to curate that journey, that transition period, give people a chance to catch up, like Patrick's saying.
Yep, makes sense. Well, that's all great examples. We've got the last 5 minutes. So I kind of want you guys to talk a little bit about we've spoken about learning and learning about the process and getting all the knowledge as an artist. And I know that, obviously Musical Eye is a huge has a huge amount of knowledge for artists, and also CD Baby as well prepares some resources for artists. So I kind of wanted you guys to talk a little bit about that. What artists can find on from your respective companies, and what where they can get resources.
Sure. For us, we have a blog, and we have a podcast that every single edition deals with a different sort of topic. And we work with, I think we've got nearly 1 million active artists that we work with across the world. So for us, the education piece is a really important thing, because we want to make that information readily available to artists so that they can educate themselves and make it easier for us as well. A better campaign for the artists is a better result for us. But I also think, subscribing to the likes of Musical Eye, all the artists that I talk to that want to learn about digital marketing, they're giving you a little plug here, Patrick, but it's an amazing resource.
100% agree.
And in the UK, there's also a company called the Unsigned Guide, which I think it's probably about the price of a cup of coffee a month for you to use it. A lot of that information will be obviously UK specific, but I think there's a lot of resources there that are very applicable, no matter where you come from.
Yeah, so Music Ally, certainly. I don't know if you can share the link that I've put into this chat onto the other chat, but musically.lnk.to/knowledge. We aren't necessarily targeted at artists. We're a bit more read by the industry. That said, it's thank you, it's been sent. So sign up, get the knowledge. But we're very much about digital and the wider music business. But yeah, actually, subscribe to things. Look, so much of stuff's available on YouTube. Actually keep on learning, keep on educating. Whoever it is, there's lots of resources out there, and make sure that you're understanding things that are going on, because it's the industry that you want to be a part of. So you need to understand it, whether that's from, from a standpoint of being an artist and what that looks like, or whether it's actually understanding how the music business works.
And I think documentaries and artist biographies as well are very underrated as inspiration sources. But I think you can get a lot of creative ideas from seeing how people that have been successful have done it in the past. And you can kind of translate that into a 2021 version for yourself,
Yep, I absolutely agree. One of my favorite artist biographies is Lily Allen's biography. I don't know if you guys read it, but she's literally talking about the whole music process, how she got signed, discovered on MySpace, I think, and then kind of signed to a label, and she had a whole drama with the management. This happened. You can learn so much from that. And I think also it's important to say that signing up for those newsletters, it's literally it's delivered to your mail every day. And it's you're having breakfast or you're having coffee, you read it, and it's 10 minutes of your life. And it really, really is very insightful. And I feel it's important also to ask questions. I've recently listened to a podcast with Charlie XCX, where she said that she's been signed to a label and she didn't know what A&R is for the longest time. She literally was just being in the industry without knowing what A&R is, but hearing that all over. So yeah, I think that's super important as well. Anything else you guys have to say to our artists who are listening us today?
I think building on what you're saying there about asking questions, I think picking partners where you can ask questions and get responses is so incredibly important. It might take them 2 days to get back to you sometimes if they're super busy, but having the ability to have that communication with the people who actually work in this space and should know what they're talking about is incredibly important. And if you don't have that, go and look somewhere else. I think.
Yeah, and we've used the word partners several times. These are people that are partnering with you on your journey. And there's too many times when I ask people, what distributor are you going with? And I shan't be named, but they'll say the name of one because it's tied to a major label, and they go, oh, so it's going to get me in. So, oh, who are you speaking to there? It's no, I just signed up on the website. It's cool. All right. Well, see how that goes for you. And one more that you always actually bring up, Hen, is industry events. Obviously they're all taking place online right now, but actually going to music business conferences, going to Bilarm in Norway, or going to South by Southwest. Another shameless plug, our Sandbox Summit conference is next week, actually. But coming to conferences like this, actually, taking part in what's going on with the industry and having an interest there. It's always actually quite nice when you see an artist coming into something like Medium, and actually, caring to actually understand what the business side of it is, and don't stop at that artist line because you aren't going to understand the business well enough. Even if you're not a music business professional, you are as an artist, and therefore you should actually understand the industry that you're a part of.
Exactly. And on that note, I'm afraid we have to finish. Thank you so much, Patrick and Henry, for joining us at INOCon. It was super insightful. Thank you so much for this conversation. And everyone else, please stay tuned for the last performance of INOCon, and let's wrap it up.
Thank you.